The listening test is about 50 minutes. There are 6 parts in listening test. You will have about 6 minutes to listen to each passage and answer the questions. The passage will be played once. Part 1, Listening to Problem Solving.
Instructions. You will hear a single conversation in 3 sections. You will hear each section only once. After each section, you will hear 2 or 3 questions. You will hear the questions only once. You will have to choose the best answer to each question. Total time for this task is around 5 minutes. You will get total 8 questions for this task.
Good morning. I would appreciate it if you could help me to open a bank account.
Certainly. Which type of account, a current account or a deposit account, are you looking for?
I want to open a current account.
That's right. The application form is right here in front of me. Could you please provide me your full name?
Yes, please. I am Peter Heen.
Any documentation that can establish your identification, such as a driver's license or a passport.
Yes, here is my passport right here.
Are you the only proprietor of this company, or do you run it in collaboration with another person?
No, I'm the only owner of this business.
Well then, Mr. Peter, do you have your current passport size photographs? I need 3 copies of this.
I'm sorry to say that I do not have them with me at the moment, but I do have a digital copy stored in my phone. Is that sufficient?
Okay, just use this ID to mail it.
Question 1. How many types of accounts does the bank representative mention? Question 2. Which of the following is not mentioned as a document for identification? Question 3. What does the bank representative instruct the person to do with the ID?
You will hear the second section of the conversation shortly.
I have sent it in the mail. Could you kindly acknowledge that you have received it?
Got it. Okay, where exactly are you residing at this moment?
15 Riverside.
How long have you lived at the address that you currently have? Is it more than 2 years?
Just 2 weeks. I actually just got here a month ago. I'm from Holland.
That's not a problem at all. In spite of this, we do ask for a previous address when dealing with situations like this one.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's Railsdorf 2, Utrecht, Holland.
Okay, do you have a number that I may call during the day?
Yes, I think it is. My office number is 606295. Just a minute. I'd better check. Oh no, I'm sorry. The number is 616. I'm not yet accustomed to it. Would you also like the number to my house?
Yes, please.
It's 796431.
Are they both considered to be local numbers?
Yes, right.
What is your job?
I'm in Britain as a project manager, but that's not my main work. Professionally, I'm an engineer.
Question 4. How long has Mr. Haynes lived at his current address? Question 5. Are both Mr. Haynes' phone numbers considered local? Question 6. What is the purpose of asking for Mr. Haynes's previous address?
You will hear the third section of the conversation shortly.
For safety concerns, we ask for a piece of information that we can use to verify your identification whenever someone calls us. So please be aware, Mr. Peter, that we do ask for this information.
It sounds like the first name of my wife.
Mothers are probably better. It's unlikely to be recognized.
All right, so here it is. CTSITI. It's Indonesian.
Fine. And how much would you wish to deposit into your account when you first start using it? In most cases, we require a minimum payment of £50. That's approximately €75.
Which approach is the most effective one to take? I have another bank account. Is it possible to transfer money directly from there?
Yeah, you can.
Done. Is there anything else you require?
It doesn't seem likely to me, thanks.
Question 7. What method does Mr. Peter inquire about for transferring money from his other bank account? Question 8. What does Mr. Peter confirm at the end of the conversation?
Part 2. Listening to a daily conversation.
Instructions. You will hear a conversation followed by 5 questions. Listen to each question. You will hear the question only once. Choose the best answer to each question.
Lucy, the marketing task that we have been given requires that we get started working on it right away. There is not much time left for us now.
Sure. Let's get started right away by reading the directions that have been provided.
It states that we need to focus on a certain sector of the entertainment business, such as film, music, live theatre, sports, or dining out. After that, we will conduct telephone interviews, and the ideal number of interviewees for each of the groups will be 15.
Okay, let's start with the most important question. Which sector are we going to pick? The movies or the music?
To be more specific, music. So which 2 different groups are we going to analyze side by side, both male and female or people of varying ages?
I believe that different age groups would be much more likely to show up disparities, such as those with ages 25 or less for one group, and those with ages 45 or over for the other group.
Right. Pop, jazz, full band, and easy listening are some examples of the types of music that they enjoy listening to. What else?
Let's include classical music as well. And after that, we should discuss the media in which people listen to music.
It will consist of radio, CD, and television as well. What about performances of live music, such as those found in pubs and halls?
Certainly, you should also add them. The following statement could be concerning the sources from which they genuinely obtain their songs. Do they download it via the internet, purchase it in record stores or department stores, or something else entirely?
Right. That might be the case for music that has been recorded, but what about live performances?
Maybe disco, concert hall, pub or club, opera house.
Excellent.
Question 1. According to the conversation, what is the main focus of the marketing task? Question 2. Which two different groups are mentioned for analysis? Question 3. What are the mentioned media in which people listen to music? Question 4. According to the conversation, which sector of the entertainment business is not mentioned as a focus for the marketing task? Question 5. How do people genuinely obtain recorded music?
Part 3. Listening for information.
Instructions. You will hear a conversation followed by 6 questions. Listen to each question. You will hear the question only once. Choose the best answer to each question.
Good morning, John. What may it be that I can do for you?
Well, I found out about these counseling sessions through a friend, and I was quite curious about them.
Okay, tell me about your requirements. Can you clarify what are your concerns?
Yes, of course, I do need some explanation about how to manage my time and my work. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it looks like a fairly easy workload until the time for the assignments comes. And then it feels like I'm working through the night sometimes. It's completely absurd. The resource center is excellent, but it closes so early.
It's all about using every hour efficiently. If you carry out these actions in accordance with a strategy, you will discover that you still have time for yourself as well as the pursuit of your interests.
That's what I want.
All right, and what else?
I'm not doing very well on my homework even now.
Before you even begin to prepare or write your first draft, you need to carefully study the question and give it a lot of thought before you can move on to the next step. It is essential that you check your work for errors, so make sure that you save some time at the conclusion of every project to go back over what you have written.
When it comes to listening, I have trouble focusing my attention, especially on sessions that go for 2 hours.
It is prudent to ask your professors if recording the lectures is acceptable. Another option that is open to you is, after the class, you and a friend should go over your notes together.
You're right, that's a great suggestion. What about the reading?
It is essential that you should not limit yourself to reading simply material related to your field. Read items that are of general interest to you, as well as interest you specifically. You know, novels, newspapers, and other types of reading material. Do you have access to an excellent dictionary?
You can't say that. I've never put any effort into getting one.
Getting one is probably going to turn out to be a smart move. The cost of dictionaries is rather low, and they are of great use in expanding one's vocabulary.
I'm grateful for your guidance.
Question 1. What is the main concern of the person seeking counseling? Question 2. What suggestion does the counselor provide to manage time efficiently? Question 3. What does the individual express difficulty with? Question 4. What does the counselor emphasize about acquiring a dictionary? Question 5. What is the recommended approach before starting to prepare or write? Question 6. How does the individual respond to the counselor's guidance?
Part 4. Listening to a news item.
Instructions. You will hear a news item once. It is about 1.5 minutes long. Then 5 questions will appear. Choose the best way to complete each statement from the drop-down menu.
During the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963, American civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. gave a public speech titled I Have a Dream, in which he called for an end to racism in the United States and called for civil and economic rights. The speech was delivered to over 250,000 civil rights from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. The speech referenced the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed millions of slaves in 1863. King notices that 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. At the end of the speech, Mahalia Jackson's shout made King break away from his written text and give a partly improvised peroration on the theme, I Have a Dream. Martin, please enlighten them on the significance of the dream. In this part of the speech, which most aroused the audience and has become its most renowned, King described his dreams of freedom and equality from a land of slavery and hatred. Martin Luther King Jr. joined Jefferson and Lincoln in shaping contemporary America with a single phrase, according to John Meacham. According to the results of a vote conducted in 1999 among experts in the field of public address, this speech was the best one delivered in the United States throughout the 20th century.
Part 5, listening to a discussion.
Instructions. You will listen to a 2 minutes video. Then 8 questions appear. Choose the best way to answer each question.
For more info. Well, this month is Mental Health Month, and I want to introduce Jessica Walker with the Stop Stigma Sacramento Speakers Bureau. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having
This
me.
is a great time to shine the spotlight on mental illness and how it affects people in the community. Talk a little bit about that.
So I think it's all about conversations, and we need to have more conversations in our community, as well as conversations that we have with our mothers about what postpartum depression looks like, and also to change the face of that. I think a lot of people have this stigma in their minds of what it should be. And with my book, Conversations Before, During, and After Pregnancies That Heal, I kind of break down healing. Healing is helping others, educating, obviously advocating, which I'm doing here, as well as loving yourself. And I think that's a big piece of it. We have to help others learn how to heal. And that's a big piece of it.
So talk about stigma. I hear that a lot when
Yes.
talking about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that and how that are you breaking the barriers with breaking stigma?
So I think with Stop Stigma Sacramento, what we do is we go out into the community. We actually just went to an event this past weekend where we were out talking to kids and bringing the awareness factor to children at an early age about what depression is, what postpartum depression is. I have my shirt here that I walk around and I advocate for every single day. And you talked a little bit earlier about like Google having this whole assistant type thing, right?
Yeah,
we have technology now. We have digital media. We have these conversations. I work as a digital media professional or producer aside from this, and that's what I talk about. I talk about how can we start this conversation digitally as well. It doesn't have to be where you physically have to be there, but you can definitely continue the conversation online with social media.
Yeah, and there are a lot of misconceptions when you talk about mental illness, and there is a project, the Mental Illness It's Not Always What You Think project. So what is that, and what is the goal of that?
So the goal of that is to, like I said before, change the face of what we think mental illness is supposed to look like, right? Mental illness is not what you think. I'm sitting here. I've battled with postpartum depression. I've battled with it for about 5 years. And coming from the community where I came from, where everyone is pretty much depressed, it's like, what does that look like exactly, right? It's like we all struggling. We all going through it. So what does that look like exactly? People don't know, and they don't understand that what's happening in the brain is that your neurons are firing. It isn't something that you did yourself. It isn't something you brought upon yourself. It actually is something that's happening inside of your brain. It means that it's not transmitting certain signals. So you need to find healing for that and understand that you can come back from that. That's the shirt says, right? I'm proof.
You're proof.
I talked about that on my morning show about dealing with mental illness and breaking the stigma. So
absolutely,
how can somebody start that conversation and help break that stigma?
I think the biggest piece of it is awareness, is what we're doing now, right? We're utilizing media to bring awareness to what's happening in the community as well as mental illness in itself. But then also let's look at what stigma is and how that affects you, right? Because you can go through self-stigma. You can go through this whole thing of, I am not depressed. When doctors told me, oh yeah, and like my hair. When doctors told me,
look at the camera.
Hey, fix it, girl, fix it.
Okay? Because people watching this. So, and when we talk about advocacy, you have to show up that way, right? You have to show up and know that, I'm serious about this cause. I definitely want women and mothers especially to understand that when you become a mother, you go from having everything in your control to everything's out of control. And you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened to me? I have this human being that came out of them. I don't even know them, but I love them. Like, what's going on? So bringing it back now to stigma. You go through that self-stigma where you just feel like, when doctors, like I said, when doctors told me that I was depressed, or you're going through depression, I was like, depression? Where have you been at? We've been through slavery, civil rights. We was uplifting, like, no, that's not what happens to us. And that's not what happens to me. I'm not putting myself in that category. But then when I started to research and I started to find out more information, it was my son that actually woke me out of it. It was my son saying, Mom, I see a difference in you. And I said, oh, no way is this going to affect him in his life. Because as a mother, we ultimately just want to protect our kids.
Part 6, Listening for Viewpoints.
Instructions. You will hear a report once. It is about 3 minutes long. Then 6 questions will appear. Choose the best way to answer each question from the drop-down menu.
Sportsmanship includes traits like justice, self-control, courage, and persistence, as well as interpersonal ideas like treating others and being treated fairly, keeping self-control in interacting with others, and respecting authorities and opponents. It is common practice to outline the 4 components of sportsmanship as following proper protocol: having the desire to win, acting fairly, and being equitable. True sportsmanship necessitates the presence of all 4 aspects, and it is necessary to strike a balance between them all in order to achieve this. These characteristics have the potential to collide with one another at times, since a person may want to win more than they want to play in equality and fairness, which can lead to a conflict within the framework of sportsmanship. This will produce issues, since the person believes they are being a good sportsman, but they are ignoring the other 2 crucial components. Today's sporting culture, particularly the foundation of elite sport, places a great deal of importance on the concepts of competition and winning, and as a result, sportsmanship takes a back seat. As a direct consequence of this, athletes competing at the highest levels of most sports, if not all sports, define the standards for sportsmanship, and regardless of whether or not they like it, they are seen as leaders and role models in society. It is common to refer to a competitor as a sore loser if they behave in an unsportsmanlike manner after losing a game or competition. Sore loser behavior includes blaming others for the loss, refusing to accept responsibility for personal actions that contributed to the defeat, reacting to the loss in an immature or improper manner, making excuses for the defeat, and citing unfavorable conditions or other petty issues as reasons for the defeat. A competitor who exhibits poor sportsmanship after winning, typically referred to as a bad winner. A bad winner acts in a shallow fashion after his or her victory, such as by gloating about his or her win, rubbing the win in the faces of the opponents, and lowering the opponent's self-esteem by constantly reminding the opponents of poor performance. In comparison, even if the opponents competed well, not showing respect to the other team is considered to being a bad sportsman and could lead to demoralizing effects.